getting input. It can be an audio tape program, it can be videos, television programs, lectures, books. No matter what input you use, to make sure that you're listening or watching very carefully, you should always be trying to ask questions of the person who wrote the program, who wrote the book, who's presenting. Because if you're always listening to ask the questions, to try and trip them up if you like, then you're listening well and you're making sure that you're concentrating, looking for the things that you need clarification on. And we recommend that you use the A, E, I, O, U that's on the board there, which are the vowels in the alphabet, to remember the type of questions you need to be asking. They are assumptions. You know, what assumptions are being made here? What evidence is there for the answers? What illustrates this point? Or what illustrations can I think of in my own work? What opinions or conclusions can I draw from what's being said? And basically, what's unique about this? What haven't I heard before? What can I do with this? So always be forming questions, asking the author, the writer, the presenter in your mind. You know, get your answers. You'll be very much listening well if you do that.
As Jane mentioned, as adults, there are three key ways that we take in information: visual, auditory, and physical. And I'd just like to ask you to consider for a moment how you best remember various events that happen. Let's say, for instance, that you're watching TV, or you're at the movies, or even reading a book. Do you, A, best remember what you see? Do you remember the scenes? Do you remember what people look like? Or B, do you remember the dialogue? Do you remember what people have to say? Do you remember people's names? Do you remember the jokes? Or C, do you remember what happened? Do you remember how the characters felt? Do you remember how you felt watching them or reading about them? You are all unique individuals, and you all have preferences. And this is what multisensory learning is all about, is to help you recognize the ones that you have and to embrace the others as well for true multi-chance, multisensory learning. Jane?
We've seen a lot of techniques so far, and mentioned a lot of techniques that actually refer to each of the senses. The visual people will certainly find techniques like highlighting. As you go through a textbook, don't be afraid to highlight, because we've all been brought up to respect books, but basically they need to work for you, and you should be involved in what you're learning. Go through, highlight the text as you find new information, underline it. Those sort of things will be very helpful for the visual people. You can also use mental imagery and visualization to put yourself in a situation where you're using your learning. That's a very visual technique. You can watch demonstrations. You maybe need to see somebody doing something before it really makes sense to you. And also the mapping technique that we'll be showing you in a little while, like the maps that we're using here, would very much be a visual technique where you can see what we're talking about. For people who are more auditory, they don't need necessarily to take so many notes, because that's their way of learning. They take the information in an auditory style. And things like audio tapes, even reading into an audio tape themselves to help revise, that would certainly help. They appreciate the sound of the voice. You can use tone and even use crazy accents to make things stand out more when you're taping your own revision. Reading out loud is definitely helpful for somebody who's auditory, and obviously lectures are ideal for them. For the physical learners, they really need hands-on. They need to actually be doing things to make sense to them. So again, actually taking part in a demonstration or taking part in role play would certainly be an advantage for them.